Here is everything you don't understand about politics. If a general election were called today, who would you vote for? Politics in the UK have become radicalised in recent years. For the first time in a century, a third party may seize control of the nation. People are being forced to take sides, to join a political identity. One side claims that business is a beast in desperate need of taming, and the other claims that individual freedom, patriotism, and religion are all under assault. The results have been drastic. Teachers are militantly refusing to teach. People believe death and taxes are the only certain things in life. Mental health is on a constant decline, with neuroticism and psychosis reaching epidemic proportions. The West is in an inexorable march towards either communism or fascism. How do we stop this? In this video, I'll give you the tools needed to construct a political framework and take back your political autonomy. To give you an analogy, I want you to imagine you're a psychotherapist. A neurotic client has come to you for help. He is a man of mixed principles, some good, some bad. Your job is to dispel his bad premises and encourage the good ones. To understand politics, you have to be the psychotherapist of an entire nation. The question is not whether you will care about politics, the question is whether you will understand it well enough to save yourself before the next catastrophe. Politics define every aspect of our lives. Prices, housing, culture, rights, healthcare. To not form a solid opinion is to play lottery with your own life. The simplest way to imagine politics is as a bakery. Imagine this bakery sold only vanilla cupcakes, nothing more. This shop is loved by its customers, however there are not many of them. Another bakery opens next door, they sell pastries, cakes, jams and all kinds of flavours. Quickly they attract attention from everyone in the area. People value different things. Increasing variety increases potential customers. Your business is now failing. Your small but loyal customer base is not sustainable. Something has to change. Political parties operate in the same way. By casting a wide net of policies, you can catch a large portion of the population. However, there is one fundamental difference. In the bakery, you have choice. You can take the raspberry cupcake and leave the vanilla for someone else. In politics, you must take the good.
Does the Prime Minister agree that for cases where the guilt is so undeniable, the crime so monstrous, the evil so irredeemable, the reintroduction of the death penalty for both foreign and domestic criminals should be put to the British people in a legally binding referendum?
With the bad.
The second thing we intend to do is to deport all illegal migrants and those who shouldn't be here in the first place.
You cannot vote for some policies and ignore the others. The fatal flaw of this system is that the vast majority of the population do not know what they stand for. If two policies directly contradict each other, they cannot both be good. And yet, we see it in every party. We have to bite the bullet on the bad points. Take Reform UK for example. Some of their policies are portrayed as pro-individual freedom. Reducing the minimum wage allows business owners more freedom over their wage structure. It also increases the ability for small businesses to enter the market. And yet their immigration policies cannot be called anything other than collectivist. To group an entire portion of the population together based on nothing but one particular characteristic is to treat individuals as collectives. This is sharply contrasted to their prior policy. For anyone trying to develop their knowledge of politics, this kind of conflict is naturally confusing. So how can you go about actually forming a robust opinion, a method that allows you to avoid falling prey to dubious policies and misleading politicians? Let's continue with the minimum wage as our example. On the one hand, it could be argued that it will further impoverish the poor. People that are already working for minimum wage may see their income slashed. A large portion of the workplace are not able to complete more skilled work, and so a minimum wage acts as protection for them. However, looking at it a different way, small business will have more opportunity in the market. Many job positions do not provide the business a profit that is above the minimum wage. Let's imagine a small t-shirt business. One man is able to create one t-shirt per hour. Each t-shirt sells for £10, netting the business £10 an hour. However, if the minimum wage is £12 an hour, the man's marginal productivity is minus £2 an hour. Both of these arguments are convincing, so how can we ever make an informed decision on them? Let's look at the two most common methodologies to figure this out. The first is to take the side you feel most attached to. You feel as though poverty is a greater issue in society than market freedom, and so you are compelled to the pro-minimum wage stance. However, that feeling is ultimately just the totality of your knowledge about the situation. Suppose you knew for certain fact that the minimum wage is a good thing, then of course you will emotionally be drawn to support it. This emotion might not be rooted in rational thought. If the knowledge you possess is insufficient or incorrect, then you are no better off than if you'd taken a blind vote. The second option is to refer to statistics. Imagine if a study showed every time the minimum wage increased, crime rates go down by 50%. That would sound revolutionary. However, how much does it really tell us? We have to recognise that statistics are a measurement, and so they are relational. Statistics do not show the entire context from which they are taken. We could imagine that if we had instead increased the minimum wage, then crime rates would have dropped by 75%. Murray Rothbard said, "Statistical information is not a substitute for theory. It is merely historical fact. Historical facts by themselves do not explain anything. They must be interpreted by a theoretical structure." Given that these two methods will not take us any closer to the truth, what is our final resort? Again, I will quote Rothbard, "Without a theory, the historian or the statistician is like a man who collects thousands of facts and then has no idea what it means. The theory is the boat that saves him." Without some kind of framework, we're in a hopeless spot. My aim in this video is to give you an indication of how a framework is constructed. It is important that we find the correct place to start. If we jump in at any place, we are doomed from the beginning. If we start with the correct foundations, only then can we begin to build. To find our correct foundations, we'll work backwards until we can't go any further. Starting with minimum wage, what is the most apparent thing we need to begin our analysis? Or any analysis at all. Let's go with the argument that raising the minimum wage is more fair for everyone. This obviously doesn't take us much further. What is fair and why is fair good? Clearly there is something more fundamental here, some way for us to decide what it is that we're even looking for. What we need is a standard, some criteria so we can judge one idea from another. If we imagine that humans were entirely neutral and could absolutely not differentiate between alternatives, there would be no purpose to action. Action is goal directed with the aim of improving the organism's condition. Imagine you're on a desert island. You only have a stick. You can either try to start a fire or go spearfishing with it. You cannot do both at the same time. You have to determine which one will improve your conditions. This criteria or values is not yet our starting point, however. At this point it would be easy to say, well, I simply value fairness, and we're in no better position than when we started. Just valuing something alone isn't enough to make it ethical. What man needs now is knowledge. He must have a knowledge of what it is that he wants to value. A knowledge of the parts involved so that he'll be able to tell them apart. A baby is not born with a knowledge of cherry pie. And so if we could interview a baby, we would see that it does not love cherry pie. Only once it has the knowledge of cherry pie as a non-toxic, sweet, calorific substance does the baby form the value of enjoying the cherry pie. Given we need knowledge and standards, how do we know they actually apply to us? How can we actually arrive at the nature of government or justice or economics if we don't know how to apply it? We must know the nature of man. Imagine if man was completely benevolent, he could only do good things. Clearly the nature of rights and governments would change. There would be no purpose for government. Who would be governed in a country of perfect people that couldn't do harm no matter what? As you can see, if any part of our understanding is wrong, then our conclusion will also be wrong. You could attempt to prove 2 + 1 = 4, however you won't have any luck. So is our final step the nature of man? No. Every existence, everything that is something. It is part of reality as a whole. Our final link in the chain is reality. Reality is the standard our ideas must comply with. What does that mean concretely? It means all knowledge that man has is knowledge of this world. Incorrect ideas are not incorrect for no reason. It is because they are not in line with reality. You may have heard economists or historians say, well, that is all good in theory, but after all, theory is not reality. All theory is derived from knowledge of reality, and so if a theory is correct, it must necessarily work in reality. Let's take Christianity as an example. If we could know for certain that there is no God, then every single ethic in the Bible would be completely unusable, as it assumes that there is a God to begin its reasoning. So then everything written would not be reflective of reality, of the truth. Now that we have a complete chain of reasoning, each of these parts together would form a framework. If each step is expanded on correctly, then conclusions will follow easily and without contradiction. Any policies that appear incoherent, inconsistent, or unsustainable have failed at the most primitive level, correspondence to reality. Despite this not being a full answer, it will give the methodology to construct a framework for those of you who wish to form full and logical political opinions. I want to expand further on each concept, on each stage of this chain in later videos. For now, however, here is a list of recommended readings to at least get you started in the right direction.